I shouldn't have been there that night. That's the truth I keep
Did you
circling back
remember
to.
to get the
If I'd
milk?
taken the other street, if I
Oh,
hadn't
I
noticed her porch
completely
light flickering,
forgot.
maybe none of
I'll
this
go
would have
back.
started. But I did, and the sight of her, standing outside with her hands on her hips, staring up at the broken light, froze me. She was older, elegant in a way that didn't need announcing. Mid-40s, maybe, the kind of beauty that feels like it's already lived through storms. She looked frustrated, biting her lower lip as if she could will the bulb back to life. Need a hand? I called out before I even thought about it. Her head turned. Eyes caught me. Dark, sharp, a little surprised. And then she smiled, like she hadn't been expecting anyone. You always show up at the right time. The words landed heavier than they should have. I tried to laugh it off. Or the wrong one. Something flickered across her face then. Something unreadable. But she let it go, stepping aside as if she'd already accepted my offer. If you're not busy, I could use the help. I wasn't busy. Not in the way that mattered. The ladder was leaning against the wall. Unsteady, paint flaking off its sides. I tested it, climbed 2 steps, and reached up for the stubborn bulb. My hands worked, but my mind was aware of her, too aware. The quiet way she crossed her arms. The way she tilted her head slightly when she watched me. I felt her gaze like weight on my back. You live next door, right? She asked, breaking the silence. 2 houses down. I twisted the bulb free. I'm the one always coming home late. Probably the reason your dog barks at odd hours. That made her laugh softly. Not the laugh of someone being polite, but something real, tucked at the edges with weariness. I don't mind the noise, she said. The new bulb clicked in. Light poured down between us, warm and unkind, showing every line in her face that told a story and every bit of youth in mine that had no answers yet. I climbed down, slower than necessary, as if dragging out the moment. Thank you. Her voice softened. I would have been stuck out here all night. You don't strike me as the type who gets stuck easily, I said before I could stop myself. Her eyes lingered on mine. A pause stretched, too long for neighbors, too sharp for strangers. She looked like she wanted to say something else, but instead she brushed her palms together, as if dusting the thought away. Inside her house, the faint glow of a lamp lit the hallway. I could smell something faint, lavender, maybe carried out by the night air. You should let me fix more than the bulb, I said, trying to steady my tone. The ladder, at least. It's not safe. Her lips pressed into the ghost of a smile. You notice too much for someone your age. I didn't know if that was meant as a compliment or a warning. Either way, it made my chest tighten. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was charged. The kind that left both of us waiting to see who would move first. She took a half step back toward her door, and for a second I thought that was it. Just a favor, a thank you, good night. But then she reached for the doorframe, her hand brushing past mine as I steadied the ladder. Just a touch, skin against skin, brief, accidental. Still, it left my fingers tingling. Her eyes met mine again. This time, she didn't look away. Would you like some tea before you head back? She asked. The night air felt suddenly thinner, like it couldn't carry both of our breaths at once. I should have said no. I didn't. I didn't expect to actually follow her inside. But there I was, stepping over the threshold like I'd been invited 100 times before. The place was warm, softly lit. Shelves lined with books and framed photos that looked carefully chosen, not cluttered. A single mug sat abandoned on the coffee table, steam long gone. Sit, she said, almost too quickly, as if catching herself giving the command. Her hand gestured to the couch, and I obeyed without a word. She disappeared into the kitchen. I heard the sound of water filling a kettle, the clink of porcelain. It should have been ordinary. It wasn't. My pulse wouldn't steady, and I kept glancing at the door, half thinking I should leave before the air got thicker. When she returned, she carried 2 cups, set one in front of me, and sat down at the far end of the couch. Not too close, not too far. The distance felt calculated. "You really didn't have to help with the light," she said, wrapping both hands around her cup. "But I'm glad you did." Her tone, soft but tired, hit me deeper than I expected. "That light looked like it's been broken for weeks," I said. She gave a quiet laugh, but there was no joy in it. "Months, actually. Just one of those things you keep putting off when there's too much else to deal with." I caught myself studying her. The small crease between her brows, the way her fingers tightened on the cup like she was grounding herself. She was beautiful, yes, but it wasn't just that. It was the heaviness in her posture, like she was carrying something invisible. "You live alone?" I asked before realizing it sounded too direct. Her eyes flicked to mine, steady, unflinching. "I do now." I nodded, though I didn't know what to say. Divorce? A breakup? A death? Whatever the story, I knew better than to push. Still, the quiet in her voice when she said it lingered in the air between us, thick as the steam from our cups. "I get it," I muttered half to myself. "Sometimes it's the small things that remind you. No one else is there to notice." Her head tilted slightly, as if the comment caught her off guard. "That's exactly it." The kettle had left her kitchen warm, but suddenly the room felt hotter, heavier. I set my cup down, fingers drumming lightly against my knee, trying to shake off the pull I felt toward her. I shouldn't have been thinking the way I was. She was older, clearly going through something, and I was, what? A neighbor kid? Someone she could thank politely and send on his way? Except she wasn't sending me anywhere. She hadn't moved closer, but her presence filled the space around me all the same. Her hand shifted, brushing against the cushion between us. Not a touch, just close enough to notice. "You don't have to rush off," she said quietly. My throat tightened. I almost told her what I shouldn't, that I hadn't wanted to leave since the moment she smiled at me outside. Instead, I sat there, my words stuck somewhere between my chest and my mouth, and watched as her hand inched just a little closer. The tea between us had gone cold. Neither of us noticed. She was staring at the rim of her cup, fingers tracing it absent-mindedly, while I was too focused on the way her hair fell forward, shadowing part of her face. I wanted to tell her she looked softer like that, human, not guarded, but the thought stuck in my throat. Instead, I said, "Do you ever get tired of pretending you're fine?" Her head lifted slowly, eyes locking onto mine. For a second, I regretted the words. Too raw, too invasive. But she didn't snap back. She just exhaled, shoulders dropping like something inside her had given way. "Every day," she whispered. The admission hit me harder than I expected. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, searching her face for more she wasn't saying. That's when her hand shifted, brushing mine on the cushion. By accident, maybe, but she didn't pull away. Neither did I. The silence between us was electric, loud in a way no words could match. Then knock, knock, knock. Both our heads snapped toward the door. Her hand pulled back instantly, as if burned. My chest tightened with frustration I couldn't show. She stood, smoothing her hair quickly, and crossed to the door. Through the frosted glass I could make out the outline of a man, tall, older. My stomach dropped, though I had no reason for it to. She cracked the door open just enough. "Yes." Her voice was clipped, neutral. "Forgot my jacket the other night," the man said, his tone casual, almost too casual. "Mind if I—" "It's not a good time." Her interruption was sharp. A pause, then footsteps retreating down the porch steps. She closed the door slowly, locking it with deliberate care. When she turned back to me, I didn't ask. Couldn't. The flush in her cheeks and the way she avoided my eyes told me enough. Whatever or whoever that was, it mattered. And it wasn't me. She sat back down, but this time closer. Too close. The air still carried the stranger's shadow, but now there was something else. A defiance in the way she leaned into the silence. "You shouldn't have heard that," she murmured. "I didn't hear anything." I lied. Her lips twitched, almost a smile, but not quite. You're terrible at lying. I wanted to tell her she didn't have to explain, that I didn't care about whoever he was, that all I cared about was her hand brushing mine again. But instead, I sat back, trying to create distance, to remind myself I was in over my head. It didn't work. My eyes betrayed me, catching the faint tremor in her hands as she reached for her cup. And before I could stop myself, my voice betrayed me too. You don't have to be alone tonight. The words landed between us like a stone dropped in still water. Her eyes widened, searching mine, testing if I meant it. The room felt smaller, hotter. My heart pounded, my body screaming to close the gap I just opened with my mouth. And then, almost too softly to hear, she whispered, "Maybe I don't want to be." The silence after her words stretched out like a rope pulled too tight, threatening to snap. Maybe I should have laughed it off, made a joke, let the moment pass. But I couldn't. Not when she was looking at me the way she was now. Eyes steady, guarded, but behind that guard something vulnerable flickered. "You don't want to be alone," I repeated, quieter this time. Her throat worked like she was swallowing words she couldn't let out. "I didn't mean it the way it sounded." "Didn't you?" The question slipped out, sharper than I intended. My chest burned. She exhaled, sat back against the couch and rubbed her temples. "You're too young to understand what I meant." The words stung, but I forced myself to hold her gaze. "I understand more than you think." For a moment, neither of us moved. The clock on the wall ticked too loudly. Her hand dropped from her face, and she studied me like she was seeing something she didn't want to see. "You don't know what you're asking for," she said finally. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees again, unable to stop. "I'm not asking for anything. I just don't want to pretend there isn't something here." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked away into the dim hallway, as if distance could save her from my words. "You should leave," she whispered. My chest tightened. The right thing would have been to stand, to thank her for the tea, to walk out before the line blurred beyond repair. But my legs wouldn't move. "Do you want me to?" I asked. That pulled her eyes back to mine, sharp, conflicted. Her fingers gripped the edge of her cup so tightly I thought it might crack. "I don't know," she admitted. The honesty in it made my breath catch. Her hand trembled as she set the cup down. She leaned forward slightly, her face close enough now that I could see the faint shadow of tiredness under her eyes, the soft curve of her lips. I knew if I reached out, if I touched her, she wouldn't pull away. But I didn't. My hands stayed clenched against my knees, trembling with the effort of restraint. Her voice broke the silence again, low, raw. "You make me feel—" She stopped, biting down on the rest of the sentence, shook her head, frustrated. "What?" I asked, too quickly, my voice almost desperate. Her eyes held mine. She didn't finish. Instead, the room filled with something heavier than words, the weight of everything unspoken pressing down on us. We sat there, locked in each other's gaze, breath unsteady, both knowing we were one step away from a line we couldn't uncross. And then she whispered the question that shattered the air between us. "Why do you keep showing up?" The silence after was louder than anything I'd ever heard. Her question hung in the air, heavier than the silence that followed it. "Why do you keep showing up?" I wanted to answer honestly, that I couldn't stay away, that I thought about her even when I tried not to. But before I could speak, her phone lit up on the table. The screen glowed with a name I didn't recognize. She saw it too. Her hand shot forward, flipping the phone over so the light disappeared. But the damage was done. "Who was that?" The words slipped out sharper than I meant. Her eyes narrowed, defensive. "No one. You don't flip a phone that fast for no one." She froze. For a moment, she looked almost afraid. Then, after a long breath, she said, "My daughter." I blinked, the words catching me off guard. Daughter. She's your age. Her voice cracked slightly, like saying it out loud made the truth harder to bear. She doesn't live here anymore. College. She worries too much about me. I sat back, trying to process. The floor shifted under me. Not just because she had a daughter, but because the math of it, the reality of who she was and who I was, had never felt so stark. She looked away, her jaw tightening. Do you see now? Why this is wrong? Why I can't let this happen? But even as she said it, her hands were shaking. And her eyes, when they flicked back to mine, weren't filled with certainty. They were filled with fear. I leaned forward, my voice lower than I expected. You think that makes me want you less? Her breath hitched. She searched my face like she was trying to find the lie, but there wasn't one. You don't understand, she whispered. Then explain it to me. Her lips parted, closed again. She looked like she wanted to confess something, to spill whatever weight she'd been carrying. But before she could, another sound cut through the room. A loud buzz from the phone, vibrating violently against the wood of the table. The name flashed again, brighter this time. And I saw it, just enough before she reached out to cover it. It wasn't her daughter. The name was Mark. I didn't know who Mark was, but the way her hand hovered over the phone, the way her body stiffened, told me everything. This wasn't just about me being too young. There was someone else. Someone still tethered to her, maybe someone she wasn't ready to let go of. I swallowed hard. That's not your daughter. Her eyes closed slowly, as though the weight of being caught was too heavy. When she opened them again, her voice was quiet, raw. You shouldn't have seen that. I leaned closer, my chest tight, my pulse in my ears. Then tell me the truth, please. The kettle on the counter clicked off in the background, filling the silence with a hollow pop. But neither of us moved. Our eyes locked, the truth between us pressing harder than ever. And then she whispered, almost too soft to hear, I'm not as free as you think I am. Her words sat between us like broken glass. I'm not as free as you think I am. I should have stood. Should have left before it got any messier. But I didn't. I leaned forward, my voice unsteady. Then why let me in at all? Why invite me? Why? Keep me here. She shut her eyes, her shoulders tight, as if bracing against the question. When she opened them again, there was no mask, no distance. Just exhaustion and something frighteningly honest. Because, she whispered, you make me feel alive again, and that terrifies me. The words cut through me, left me silent. I wanted to reach for her, but my hand only hovered halfway, trembling in the air. She noticed. Her eyes flicked to it, then back to mine. I don't want to ruin you, she said, her voice breaking now. You're young and I've already made too many mistakes. I shook my head, leaning closer. You're not ruining me. You're the only thing that's made sense in months. Her breath caught, and then she laughed softly, a laugh laced with sorrow. You don't even know what you're asking for. Then show me, I said, my voice sharper than I intended, almost pleading. Show me what it is you're so afraid I'll see. That silence again. Heavy. Unforgiving. She stared at me like she was weighing every possible outcome. Then, slowly, she lifted her hand and placed it over mine. Just that. Skin on skin, warm, trembling. Her thumb brushed once across my knuckles. Hesitant but deliberate. It was the smallest gesture, but it felt like the ground giving way beneath us. I can't promise you forever, she whispered. I can't promise you simple. But I can promise that right now it's real. My chest ached. I wanted to tell her that was enough. That I didn't need forever. Just the truth of her in this moment. But the words failed me, and instead I just closed my fingers around hers, holding on like it was the only thing keeping me steady. I don't care if it's complicated, I said finally. I care if it's honest. Her eyes shimmered. Whether with unshed tears or something else, I couldn't tell. She leaned forward just slightly, enough that her breath grazed my cheek. And then she stopped, her lips hovering inches from mine, the choice burning in the air. "Say it," she whispered. "If you really mean it." I swallowed hard, heart pounding, every nerve in me screaming the truth. "I want you." The room seemed to collapse in on us then, her forehead pressing gently against mine, her hand tightening around mine as if she'd been holding that need back for years. We didn't kiss. Not yet. But in that silence, in that fragile, trembling closeness, it was clear. The line we'd been circling wasn't there anymore. Engagement prompts. The night had gone still. No traffic outside, no ticking clock. Just us, two people sitting too close, holding on like the world outside might come crashing in if we let go. Her forehead rested lightly against mine, her breath mingling with mine in the quiet. It wasn't a kiss, but it was everything just short of one. "You're going to regret this," she whispered. I shook my head. "No. What I'd regret is walking out that door and pretending none of this ever happened." She closed her eyes, her hand tightening around mine. For the first time since I'd known her, she didn't argue. She didn't push me away or hide behind excuses. She just let herself be there, with me. The phone on the table stayed dark, silent. Whoever Mark was, he belonged to another chapter of her life. And maybe her daughter would never understand. But in that moment, none of it mattered as much as the truth we'd finally spoken. She lifted her head slightly, meeting my eyes. There was no mask left, no guarded distance. "You know this isn't simple," she said softly. "I don't want simple," I replied. "I want real." Something in her broke then, not in a way that shattered, but in a way that finally let light through the cracks. She leaned in, closing the space between us, and when her lips touched mine, it wasn't desperate or reckless. It was steady, deliberate, like a choice made with both fear and courage. The kiss didn't solve everything. It didn't erase the age difference, the shadows of her past, or the weight of what this might cost us. But it told the truth, that what we had was undeniable even if the world called it wrong. When we pulled apart, she kept her hand on my face, thumb brushing the corner of my mouth. "You make me feel alive again," she said, repeating the words she'd tried to bury earlier. This time, she didn't take them back. "And you make me feel seen," I admitted. For a long moment, we just sat there, looking at each other. Two people from different lives, different ages, bound by something we couldn't explain but couldn't deny. Maybe tomorrow there would be consequences. Maybe she'd second-guess everything. Maybe I would too. But tonight we'd chosen honesty over fear. And that was enough. Moral/emotional payoff. Sometimes love doesn't come wrapped in neat timing or perfect circumstances. Sometimes it arrives when it shouldn't, between people who shouldn't be, forcing them to decide whether the risk of regret is heavier than the risk of being seen. We chose to be seen.